June is going to see one of the biggest LEGO set drops of the year with over 70 sets releasing. And in this video, we're going to have a look at exactly what's coming. Everything from the new Lord of the Rings book nook to the Simpsons set, the minifigure prize machine, and everything in between. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and I will put timestamps in the description below. But we will start, as always, alphabetically with the art theme. And set 31217, the Fauna Collection Tiger, or more specifically, Tiger's Head. Thankfully, mostly gone are the days where hunters would go out on safari and bag themselves a tiger so that it could just be turned into a rug or have its head hung up on a wall. LEGO, though, have now addressed this gap in the market, so you can have a tiger's head of your very own which you can proudly hang on display in your wall, and apparently an exterior one by the look of this rendering. In all fairness, it is quite colourful. 744 pieces means it's pretty small, but fairly impactful. They've felt the need to include the flowers with it as well, which I suppose does add something, although I think it's pretty much colourful enough as it is that it doesn't really need them. I mean, I guess it kind of gives the idea that it's maybe peeking out, looking at some prey, hiding behind cover, although I don't really think that these sorts of coloured flowers are probably what it's going to be poking its head out between whilst hunting something in the wild. Bit of artistic licensing there, perhaps, but that's fine. Overall, I think this does look pretty nice. The shaping's all been captured fairly well, and having the option to either put it on a wall or stand it on a side, it's good to have those couple of different display options. Now, of course, pricing is the next thing, and for those of you watching in the United States, it's going to be $65. For Canada, it will be $80. Australia, $100. Then €60 in Europe, and 55 British pounds. Now, of course, as is the case for all of these sets, let me know what you think of it down in the comments. Overall, for me, it's pretty good looking, although the one downside that I can't get past is its muzzle is much flatter than it normally would be, which means that this shaping we have here looks a bit like a space rocket, or something else. Time to move on now, though, and we come to a new theme with Bluey, and of course that means that we need to start in Australia. It's just the right thing to do, although me putting on this accent probably isn't the right thing to do and will just insult a whole load of people, so I will stop it. We have set 11201, the playground fun with Bluey and Chloe. This is just a 4+ set, and you know what? Actually, for the amount that you get in here, I don't think that that's too bad a price, considering we are starting in Australian dollars for this one. They gave us Bluey. He's an Australian cattle dog. It'd be wrong not to. And yes, whilst okay, it is just a 4+ set, I think there's going to be lots of kids that are going to really want this. The source material just being so hugely popular, and it's great that LEGO have now been able to sort out the license for this and offer up a really good, colourful play set. For those of you in Canada, the price is going to be $25. In the US, it'll be $20, and that'll be the same in euros, whilst in the UK, it'll be £18. There's also set 11202, this time Bluey's beach and family car trip, which, to be fair, does have a fairly basic but fun car to add to the play features as well. Again, a 4+ set, so no stickers, it's all going to be printed in here. Unfortunately, the pricing on this one, not so great. So $40 in Australia does put that price per piece count up a fair bit. It's the same in Canada, so even harsher for parents who are going to be wanting to grab this for their kids. $30 for those of you in the States. Once again, that's the same in Europe, and it's going to be £25. The big one, though, is Bluey's Family House in set 11203. This one, 382 pieces. Yes, you've guessed it. Once again, a 4+ set. This one coming with a lot more to it, which does explain the higher price tag, $100 in Australia. Still actually better on a price per piece count than that previous set that we just looked at. And with more characters and accessories, I think this is going to actually have a lot more fun to it. So if you can afford it, probably the one to go for to actually give a kid just more fun playtime. But let's be honest, they're actually going to want all of the sets, aren't they? In the UK, it's £60, €70 across Europe. That's the same in US dollars, but a bit more in Canada, coming in at $90. Now, I don't cover Duplo in these videos, but it is just worth noting, because it's a new theme for Bluey, that also coming next month, you've got the ice cream trip with Bluey in set 10458, and also 10459, the family house with memory game. So if you do have kids that are that bit younger, there's also a couple of Duplo sets based around Bluey coming out next month as well. Time now, though, to move to the Botanicals theme with set 10348, the rather pretty looking Japanese red maple bonsai tree. I do love the colour of these, both in nature and of course the way that LEGO has captured it here. It does look pretty good in my estimations. I'm not quite so keen though on the base that we have here. It looks just a little bit plain to me compared to everything else that is really quite spectacular in the way that it's put together. Just thinking back to the bonsai tree that we had in set 10281, it was a much more impressive sort of base for it all to stand on. A little bit flimsy in its connections, to be fair. You had to be careful when you were putting it together or moving it around, but it just looked more impactful, I feel, than what we have here. But that's a personal opinion. Let me know what you think. What I can't get away from, though, sadly, on this is the price that it's being tagged in at. So 474 pieces for $60. That's up around 13 cents per piece. And none of these elements are new. They're all ones that we've seen before, so they haven't had to do any new molds or even any recolorings. And look, yes, there have been tariffs, there have been price increases, but I do think it's pretty telling. 474 pieces to this new set. We compare that back to the old bonsai tree that we had here. Look at that piece count difference. And yet the pricing, this is $10 cheaper. Now, admittedly, there are different parts in here, and those do have different cost implications attached to them, but I do really feel that this one is overpriced, and that's a shame because apart from the base that I'm not keen on, I think it does look really pretty. Be a very nice one to have on display. As a fan of the Botanicals, I want to get it, but I definitely think that I will be holding off until it goes on discount. Now, for those of you in Canada, it is $80, and you can make that $100 if you're in Australia. Across Europe, you're back at €60, whereas in the UK, £55. It's not the only botanical set coming in June, though, as you will also be getting one that's a bit different in set 10349, the Happy Plants. This one, not an 18+ set, but rather a 9+ set, looking very visually different from anything we've had from the botanical lines before, this time coming with very fun and colourful looking pots. Now, as Happy Plants, I do think that the shaping of the foliage that they went for could have been something different for a bit of added humour, but then they probably wouldn't have got away with that, and let's be honest, they wouldn't want to do it anyway. In all fairness, I actually think that these are quite sweet, and they're obviously not going to probably appeal to your normal adult botanical line collectors. Of course, if they do, no issues with that, but they are clearly trying to go after the younger demographic here and get them interested in the line, and I think they've done a pretty good job of it, actually. The simple but fun little characters that we have with the pots are probably going to make it likely that younger kids are going to be interested in having it on display, and that is pretty cool. Of course, they are very small, as you can see here, but then the price tag does reflect that. It's actually not that expensive. So here in the UK, £18 at 217 pieces, that's just over 8 pence per piece. In the States, it's more like 10.5 cents per piece, so $23 for this. For Europe, quite often it's the same as US pricing, but it's not in this case, a little bit cheaper, so €20, whereas in Canada it'll be $25 and $30 in Australia. Switching to the city theme now, we begin with set 60470, the Explorers Arctic Polar Express train. Yes, it's another train, I know, the excitement. Now, for those of you in the States, you may be wondering why this says that it's being released in June, because for yourselves, it's not coming, unfortunately, until August. So an extra couple of months, I'm afraid, although, of course, you can pre-order it. But in most other regions, it is available from June. So 1,517 pieces. Quite a few curved bits of track, very little in the way of straight. This is, of course, also a powered-up set coming with remote control. The first thing is the minifigs, which I am really liking the look of. Usual caveat that some of them could have done with some more leg printing, but to be fair, others do come equipped with that. So I'm pretty happy. The train itself is nice and sizable, good amount of access. This is going to be great for playability, and I also think it looks good as well. I know this sort of colour scheme isn't everyone's taste. We've looked at other sets in the past with this sort of Arctic line with the blue and the orange, etc., and people haven't liked it. Me, though, I'm very keen on it, and I think this is just a fun set. It's got nice little things dotted around it feature-wise, and a bit like how we had the map pieces for the Jungle Johnny Thunder sets, that theme is continuing now that he is continuing his adventures in the Arctic. And it's great that they're going with that. It means that we could well be seeing some desert ones coming our way at some point. But just look at this. This is a really sizable set. If you're not into power-up functions, then obviously it's a bit of a downer for you, because having them included in the box means that the price tag is bumped up quite a bit, as we're going to look at in a second. However, for most train fans, and to be fair, even those who aren't usually into trains but like to do their city setups, it's kind of a must. And overall, I've been waiting quite a while to have a decent looking remote control train set come along. To have that coupled with Johnny Thunder and the Arctic theme, I think this looks really good and I'm excited to get it. Now, that does of course bring us on to price. In the UK, you're going to be looking retail at $180, whereas in the States, once it is released, and remembering you can pre-order it, $210. For Canada, again, an August released, $260. But in Australia, it is also coming in June, and that's going to be $300. Now, whilst in Australia you can't pre-order it, in Europe you can, and once again there, June release, and that's going to be €200. Now, there's only one other set coming for the City lineup in June, or indeed the only one if you're in America, but it is a biggie, set 60473. The City Tower with 1,941 pieces. And it's a pretty imposing build, obviously very colourful, and it's going to look good, I think, as a standalone display. My only sort of issue with it is how it would possibly fit in with an actual city setup if you do like to have all the different buildings put together. This doesn't seem very realistic to me. I mean, having a spaceship on top in the centre, and then we've got the fire car, the tram, the other car, the construction work. It's all a bit higgledy-piggledy, not even mentioning the skate park. So as a standalone set, pretty good. But just thinking about integrating this into an actual city setup, maybe I'm limiting my imagination, but it doesn't seem to make sense to me. Let me know what you think about that down in the comments. But never mind, onto the actual set itself. Comes with a decent amount of playability, nice array of minifigures, including some from the No Limits TV show, and the whole thing has a great size. That is going to be very imposing. So I do think that from both a display and a play level, this is a great set to have. It's just that overall integration that does put a bit of a question mark in my mind. Now, pricing, of course, we have to have a look at that. It was going to be less, but this is one of the sets that they've just increased because of what's been going on. So $210 now, $260 for those of you in Canada, $300 down under, £180 and €200. It's Disney's turn now though, folks, and we will start with Moana in set 43258 and the Kakamora Barge. Just a 7+ set, but certainly jam-packed and very colourful in its display and a decent size as well. So I think fairly reasonable amount of fun could be had with this. Great that we get a big fig of Maui, a new version of Moana as well, and of course you get a little Hey Hey too, although no pig for some reason. I mean, you do get a whole bunch of the little coconut characters, but no pig included, because that only comes in 43260, Moana's Island Fun. But correct me if I'm wrong here, I did see this movie when it was added to Disney Plus not that long ago. Wasn't the pig also with Moana throughout it? Wasn't left on the island? So not quite sure why they've decided to exclude said character. Seems a little bit of a shame. And let's just address the other negative thing first before looking at the good side of this. It's not fantastic from a price point again. 572 pieces, $100. You know, bear in mind, 43210, Moana's wayfinding boat that's now retired. This was $35. Okay, was obviously a fair bit smaller, but just looking at piece count, this one is less than twice the size, and yet it's not far off 3 times the price. And this was a really good looking little set. Now, I admit, it is a little bit like comparing apples and oranges. You are getting more characters in this. The big fig I've already mentioned, and it is larger with other pieces, but I still feel that that's just a bit high. And I'm not going to bang on about it too much because we kind of all know that it's going in that direction. But when we are talking about these sets for kids, I just really don't think it's right. They need to do something, cut their profit margins, whatever it is when we're looking at sets like this, because, I mean, for the parents that can just buy this for their kids, great, fine, good for you, not a problem. But there are a lot out there who will struggle to do that. And that doesn't really sit very well with me, because then you're not going to get kids into Lego, you know, going forward to the next generation. So I don't think that's great. But as far as the actual set itself goes, colourful, decent size, good amount of fun. I like the printing they've done on the sails. That's really nice. So a lot of positives to this one. I think it's a good looking set. Just a shame it couldn't be a little bit cheaper. In Canada, it's $130, Australia, $150, €100 and £90. Next up, look out for snakes in your boots, because it's the Toy Story Celebration Train and RC car in set 43264. Just a small set, 4+, 206 pieces, but it is here to celebrate 30 years, 30 years since Toy Story came out. I cannot believe that it's that long. Well, I'm glad they've done it. Like many, many others, and most of you watching, I'd imagine, I love Toy Story. What an incredible film it was. And all of them, actually, although I wasn't that keen on the last one, but just a fantastic franchise overall. And I think this is a great set. Doesn't matter that it's a 4+. A lot of people are going to want to get this. Really nice looking minifigs. Shame that they couldn't have just made Woody a tall fig. Lego, would it really have been that much of an issue just to do that? And also, couldn't you have thrown in Bullseye along with Jessie? That would have been nice, but hey ho, way it goes. It's nice to have these little scenes represented. Obviously, I mean, they've done the larger version of this brick built in the past, but cool to get it represented here. Having this done as a train, I think that's fairly nice. You obviously get a little nod and a wink to the soldiers here, and Bo Peep's sheep. Reminds me of the lovely nursery rhyme, Little Bo Peep had some sheep. They'd often perform a stunt where she'd get down on all fours and they'd lick her on the nose. Now, if you want to get this when it comes out next month, be it for your kids or just for yourself, for the nostalgia, yes, it's only 206 pieces, but as a 4+ set, there's no stickers, it's all printed. I think it looks really good, nice idea. $35 actually seems pretty reasonable. 60 in Australia, 40 euros and 35 pounds. They haven't loaded it up on the Canadian site yet as I'm filming this, but no doubt they will have by the time I put the video out, so just go and check it on there. Next is the Princess Castle and Royal Pets in set 43267. This one's 787 pieces, more sizable and definitely more colourful. It is open-backed, but that's what you can expect with these sets, and to be fair, has a fair amount of playability on the inside of it too. Also comes with some great mini dolls and their animal friends. So I know mini dolls aren't for everybody, but you've got Ariel with Flounder, Jasmine with Raja. You do also now get the pig in this one with Moana, Pork Chop or whatever his name is. And then also Rapunzel with... I can't remember who this character is. It's been a very long time since I've seen that. Pascal, okay. But look, the great thing, Mulan, and for the first time ever in Lego form, Mushu. I thought Eddie Murphy was hilarious voicing this. I love Mushu, it's great. I don't care about mini dolls, they're not for me. I like minifigs, and nothing about this set is aimed at me at all as a demographic, and I don't like it, but do you know what? I want this. I want that Mushu. I think it looks great. And to be fair, the set overall, I think, is a pretty good one. Although I do call them out on price sometimes, I actually think it makes more sense if you can afford to buy a set like this. It's just better than all the little sets because they're not particularly great to play with. This, I think it looks good. So it's got displayability factor, but more importantly, it's got the size, the scope, the characters, the accessories to actually play and have some proper fun with. So I think this would make for an excellent gift. And because of how good it looks, nice shaping, colouring, etc., just from an adult perspective, I don't think it's the sort of thing you'd be sorry to have around the house. So that's a pretty cool addition to the Disney lineup. Does not work out great price per piece, but as I say, I actually think that if you can afford to, it makes more sense to get a bigger set like this. So with that in mind, $130 US, 150 in Canada, 200 Australian, 120 euros across Europe, and £110 in Blighty. Now, quick mention for Minnie's Pet Hotel, this set 43274, obviously just a 4+ set, so again, no stickers, all printed. Nice couple of minifigures of Minnie and Daisy. Not sure that I would really class this as a pet hotel, considering that it's literally just a couple of rooms with no walls, etc. Have to take that one with a pinch of salt, but it's fun, it's colourful, it has the play features, and that's really what matters. So if you're wanting that one, £35, 40 euros. In Australia, it's $60. Now, in both Canada and the US, it hasn't been loaded up onto Lego's site yet, but in the States, I think it's going to be $40. You'll just need to go over and double check that for yourselves once this video is released. Now, there are a couple of bigger sets aimed at adults coming, but just before them, the last of the young sets, this one 5+, is the Mini Arendelle Castle and Elsa's Ice Palace. So obviously you get both represented here, and it also comes with a whole bunch of characters which I think just look really weird. Now look, I'll show my ignorance here. I try to keep on top of most things Lego, but certainly when we're looking at these sort of young versions of sets, they're funnily enough not what I'm interested in, but what have they done to these? With the closed-in circular hands and the giant heads, they look really freaky. I do not like that at all. I think it looks pretty horrible. But there you go. You know, if you've got a kid that likes Frozen, you're going to have to get this set, aren't you? Because Lego's never produced another Frozen-related Lego set ever, apart from the previous 1,000 other things. You know, I'd love to know how much Disney has banked just off of Frozen. You know, the movie and all the related merchandise that's come off of it. They must have made so much. Anyway, $50 for this in the States, $65 in Canada, $80 in Australia, €50 and £45. Now, next up, I think is a pretty cool one. Those of you who liked the buildable version of Stitch, which despite being a 9+ set, I thought was a fantastic one even for adults. Such a brilliant buildable character. Well, you're now getting Angel from the Lilo & Stitch TV show, this in set 43257. Bear in mind, actually slightly larger piece count than we had with the buildable version of Stitch, and yet priced in at the same amount. Thank you, Lego. Do appreciate it. And I think that this is a build that possesses just the same level of character and charm that Stitch had previously. Wonderful little build, posable ears again. It really does help change the expression. And if you do already have Stitch, you're kind of going to have to get this one now as well to go alongside. I think they've done a great job with it. Looks really cute. I think the love hearts are a really nice touch to have as well. So I think they've done a really good job with this one. Great design, nice price. A lot of people are going to want it. Of course, I am far too much of a man's man. I don't want any silly pink-looking buildable creature. That's just obviously not going to be for me at all. Now, although it's not a set, I should just mention that there's also going to be 854319, the Stitch keychain, also coming out in June. Sadly, this one not coming with his Hawaiian shirt, but otherwise pretty good looking. Now, next up, we do have a true 18+ build. This in set 43269, the 101 Dalmatians puppy, and I think that this looks absolutely brilliant. The level of character that they've managed to capture here is awesome, and the posability is just brilliant. Obviously, the big connection here is for 101 Dalmatians, but even if you're not a fan of Disney or that movie, if you like dogs, and of course specifically Dalmatians, and want a buildable version, well, look no further, because this is fantastic. You know, there's not many builds that they release that I look at and think, I want that immediately, but this is definitely one of them. Now, of course, that's personal opinion again. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments, but just from a build quality point of view and the different positions you can put it in, I think this is really hitting the mark. Now, they do say that you can supposedly recreate any of the 101 Dalmatians, and whether or not that's true, I don't know. I'm not going to go through looking at how they were all drawn in the animation to see if the different pieces are included so that you can actually recreate any of them. So whether or not that's a true statement, well, that's anyone's guess. But it does come with instructions for how to make Patch, Penny, Roly, Pepper, Lucky, or Freckles. I don't even remember there being one called Freckles, but clearly there was. And whilst this one is aimed more at adults, there is another that we'll get to in a minute, which is aimed more for kids. A little bit like how they did the big version of Simba and then the small version. But I love the expression that they've captured here. The eyes are brilliant, just everything about it. You know, I do give Lego stick for when I feel they get things wrong, and equally I will give them a lot of praise when they get things right. And I think that here, brilliant example of a set that just looks fantastic. And not badly priced at all either. That's also refreshing to say. So this 1,722 pieces, decent price per piece count, coming in at $150. That's just around 8.5 cents per piece. Not a bad price, I don't think. For Canada, it's going to be 180, 200 for those of you in Australia, and then 140 euros. And £130. As an aside build, there is also going to be 43271, the 268-piece Lucky and Penny 101 Dalmatian puppies. These naturally far more simplified, of course, but what do you expect for the price point? They're still pretty nice. I think they're just about right considering the age range that they are aimed at as a 6+ set. Plenty of pleasure that can be got out of those. I like the fact that they've done the TV with a little cartoon, and I can't remember the name of the dog in the cartoon. Grand prize of absolutely nothing for whoever can name in the comments what it was called. I really can't remember without going back and watching. And look, these are just very simplistic. They're kind of cartoonish. There's absolutely no point tearing them down in that respect, because actually I think that they do a pretty good job of fulfilling what they are aimed at doing. I don't particularly like them. I think the expressions could have been a bit better, but it just doesn't seem right really being harsh on them, because actually they are pretty good. Of course, they don't really go alongside your bigger version there. This makes it look a little bit silly. But if you're not going to be going for this, which I think does look awesome, then these are certainly not a bad little tribute either. And pretty affordable, coming in at £20 in the UK, €25. Now, I suspect that that will also be the same pricing as we'll see in the States, but again, they've not put it up on the site yet, which is really useful of them when I'm trying to do these videos, so sorry about that. But yeah, I suspect $25. It's $40 in Australia, and it's the same story with Canada. They haven't put it up on the site yet, but I think it's going to be 35 Canadian dollars. Switching over to Fortnite now, there are 3 sets that are coming in June. The first being 77075, the Peely and Spark Plugs Camp. This coming with a new version of Peely, and we've never had Sparkplug before in minifigure form, so good to get. Side builds, pretty decent too. I think it's great that we now get just a small little buildable version of the llama, and whilst the terrain doesn't really serve much purpose in terms of playability, it obviously does help bulk it out a little bit. So considering it's definitely down at the cheapest end of the price range, that makes for a good fun addition, and I really do like the printing that they've given Sparkplug great on that minifig. $23 in the States, 25 in Canada, 30 Australian, €20, £18. Then following on from the buildable version of the Der Burger that we got, we now have the Der Burger restaurant in 77076. Only 546 pieces to this one, but to be fair, they really do seem to have managed to pack quite a bit in. The restaurant itself, decent build. I like the sticker that they've used on top, and I don't say that very often because I'm not a fan of stickers, but I think that's really great colour. In fact, all throughout this, from the roof down to the brickwork and all the little accessories, the colours that have been used, really bright, vibrant, match in well, and as we're coming to expect from the Fortnite theme, also some great minifigures with really nice printing on. I love it when LEGO take the time to give us the quality that we see in printing like this, and it just makes me all the more sad that we don't get this level of attention to detailing in any of the sort of Star Wars or Harry Potter minifigs, most of your other licensed stuff. But at least we do get it here. And overall, it does look like a really great set. I think the umbrella stand is quite fun. Kind of looks like a duck with a big beak and eyes. And the overall set as a whole is a decent size. Now, pricing on this one, depending on where you are around the world, £55. And you can pre-order it if you're in the UK. For the States, can't pre-order, but $65 as of June, $80 Canadian, 90 Australian, and €60. But the biggest and wackiest for June, for Fortnite anyway, is 77077 and Clombo. What a brilliant buildable character this is. I absolutely love it. So colourful and brilliant. The way the head is done and all these teeth is awesome. Just love the shaping. I think the build experience of this is going to be really cool. And this is something that I like about the Fortnite sets, even regardless of the source material, because I have played Fortnite, but I'm not a big gamer and I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about it. But that doesn't matter because these sets just on their own are really cool. And the fact that I'm not big into playing normal Fortnite or the Lego version of Fortnite doesn't mean that I don't want this set. And I'm assuming that that will translate to other people as well, because I just think this looks so fun. And it's great that LEGO can do stuff like this that is just really different and perhaps isn't the sort of thing that anybody would normally buy, and yet it looks cool. And again, we've got a couple of really great looking minifigs, another new version of Peely here. Just look at the level of detailing that's gone into this. It blows me away. It's fantastic when they do it. And again, LEGO, please just give us even half of this much detail in some of your other themes. It would still be 2 or 3 times better than what you're currently doing. It's so annoying when you can see the level that they're capable of. But anyway, back to the main build itself. I just think that this is a really fantastic one. Does have some posability and movement to it, so I guess kind of has a bit of play function, but mostly this is just going to be about having something really different and cool on your display shelf, and I think that it has just bucket loads of character. And regardless of whether you are a kid, as this is a 10 plus set, or an AFOL, it doesn't matter. I think it's a cool one to be able to own. $110, sadly, it has suffered from that price increase. It was going to be, I believe, 99, but they've popped it up by 10. So anyway, 110 in the States, 130 in Canada, 150 Australian, 100 euros, and 90 pounds. And just before anybody asks, yes, there is also the Mecha Team Leader, but that is not coming out until August. So you'll have to wait for my thoughts on this one until next month. God, I bet the suspense is killing you. Now, though, it's time to turn our attention to Harry Potter, and June is definitely a big month for this, with 8 sets coming out for the theme. We will begin with this 76445, a little 8+ set with 390 pieces, being the Hogwarts Castle Herbology class, and this makes up part of the new modularized Hogwarts Castle series that they've been doing. So you put it all together, it's the largest version that we've had to date. That doesn't change the fact, though, that this is a pretty small set. Professor Sprout is, of course, the main minifigure here and great to get, but also does make perfect sense to have Neville here too, and Hermione also a reasonably good addition. The main draw, though, is the set itself. It's very colourful. I really like the choice of pieces that they've gone for, representing the different plants, from obviously the Mandrake through to the Mimblus Mimbletonia. It's the sort of set I would like to get 2 of in order to just flesh it out a bit and make it that much more impressive. However, then, of course, if you did that, it's not going to fit in with the actual rest of the modular castle. But there's plenty of nice parts usage in here. Love the golden umbrellas and the little dragon heads. That looks fantastic. Obviously, it hinges open and closes up. So all round, a really nice looking little build. But here is the main problem with it. It's $50. I mean, never mind the other magical plants in here. I think some magic mushrooms were being used when they came up with this pricing. It's just way too expensive for what it is, unfortunately. So, nice set. I know the modular Hogwarts castle that they're doing isn't for everyone, but if it's for you, I would definitely say get this. However, it's just one of those sets you really need to wait until it does come up on offer to sort of make any sense. It's $60 in Canada, 80 Australian, 50 euros and 45 pounds. Then there is set 76448, this time Fawkes, Dumbledore's Phoenix, and this is just based around the very similar styling that we saw in Hedwig at number 4 Privet Drive. The piece count is slightly lower and the price is slightly higher, but you can obviously see it's aimed at the same age demographic. I don't particularly like the look of it. I've got to say that whilst Hedwig here was very simplistic, there was some character, I think, to the way it looked, particularly in the eyes. Fawkes, not so much. I think the little baby version, that's pretty good, but then for less than 10 pieces, that's not really the point. I'm sure, though, that there are plenty of kids who would like this. It also comes with, obviously, the sorting hat and Gryffindor's sword. I definitely feel that could have been done better. Don't like the pieces used there. However, the price point isn't too bad for this. It is a kid's set. I think it's the right size in that respect, so you can have some fun with it. Pricing-wise, $23, $25 in Canada, $30 for Australia, 18 in the UK, and 23 euros. I really like the next one, though, set 76449, the Chomping Monster Book of Monsters, something we only previously had as a GWP. Well, now you can buy it, and it does look really good. It's also fitted with a mechanism and wheels underneath, so that when you push it along, it does make the book open and close, so it looks like the mouth is chomping up and down. And it does have a pretty aggressive look to it, and decent size overall, it has to be said. Now, on the downside, because it seems there always has to be one with these sets for Harry Potter these days, they've included another Neville minifig, and I don't know why. He wasn't really anything to do with this book, particularly. It would have made more sense to have Harry, although of course we do have him a lot, and therefore the best figure I think to put with it would be Hagrid, seeing as he is at this point the Professor of Care of Magical Creatures. Nonetheless, they've gone with Neville, so whatever. This set is really just about the main build itself, and I think it combines a really nice mix of, perhaps not play, because there's only so much you can do with this, but it's got that fun functionality to it, and it does look good. Definitely a sidestep from a lot of the usual Harry Potter type builds that we get, and I think that is definitely a big benefit. Also, pricing on this one, whilst yes, I would like it to be cheaper, of course, it's by no means anywhere near as unreasonable as some of the others. So actually, overall, I think this is a pretty nice one to be able to get. $60 in the States. In the UK, it's £55. In Europe, it's going to be $60. Australia, $110. And in Canada, it's going to be $80. Now, LEGO is going a little bit Book Nook crazy in June. The first of 3 Book Nook related sets being the Hogwarts Express. And although they have classed it as a Book Nook, which it certainly can be, it can also serve as bookends as well. We find the picture just here, and actually I prefer it looking like this. I think that having it sort of opened up a little bit more on display allows you to see all the different details that have gone into this, because it does look good. I really like the Hogwarts Express, the version we're seeing here. Good size, the architecture for platform 9 3/4, that's all good. Now, if we compare that to when it's in its actual book nook form, yes, it still has a reasonable amount that you can see on display, but obviously quite a bit of it is hidden away. So I don't like this as much, but I will admit that they have configured it fairly nicely so that when it folds together like this, you still get a good angle of obviously the Hogwarts Express and enough room for our characters in the middle. What I don't like is all the stickers going on around the side. They don't really seem to be adding anything to me, but let me know what you think about them in the description down below. Now, the other thing is, I have seen a few people saying that it's a shame there's not more minifigures included with this, and of course, yes, it would be nice if there were more. However, for the overall size and the price point, 2 really is what we were likely going to get, and it does make sense for it to be Harry and Ron just making up that first meeting, and therefore having Hedwig and Scabbers as well, that's also the right choice. Although, you know what, there is a slightly vindictive side in me that wants to say that the minifigures that should have been put in with this are the adult Ron and Hermione that got taken out of the collector's edition of the Hogwarts Express. You know, now was another time where we could have potentially had those put in, but that is vindictive because that would never seriously happen. So overall, I like this. I think it's a great looking thing. For those who do have books on a shelf that you want to be able to display this alongside, that's great. Obviously makes perfect sense if it is the Harry Potter novels that you're going to be putting it around. But even if you don't have books that you're going to be displaying in your home, then even just as a little standalone set, it's still pretty nice. Pricing, not great, not terrible. Coming in at $100 in the States, $130 in Canada, $150 for Australia, and then €100 in Europe, and £90 in the UK. Moving on, we have set 76451, Privet Drive and Aunt Marge's Visit, a scene we haven't had before and a pretty nice rendition of Privet Drive. It's nice for me to be able to show it now without having LEGO try to copyright strike me for leaking the image, and then wasting 2 weeks of my time whilst I counter it. Always very useful of them to do that, because of course I win, the video gets restored, but by that time another couple of weeks have gone by. Anyway, at least we can now have a look at it properly, that it's on the site itself. And I have a bit of a mixed opinion about it. I think overall it's a really good size. You know, it's got a good amount of detailing on the exterior. You know, nice little touches, things like the letters being shoved through the letterbox. That's then reflected on the inside as well, where it's sort of boarded up. And in that respect, this is a little bit of a mix mash of scenes, because of course that happened in the first book or the first movie. And then this scene is actually from the third one, Aunt Marge's Visit. And then you've got things like the bars on the windows of Harry's room, which is from the second one. So, you know, there's nice touches throughout this referencing different scenes from throughout the movies. There's also a decent amount of room on the inside. Okay, it is quite narrow because, of course, it is hinged, so it opens and closes, but you can fit your minifigures in here. Dudley has a lot of space up in his room, whilst Harry just has his little cupboard under the stairs, but it looks like you can just about cram him in there. Now, in the previous video I did of this, I didn't have an image of the dining room table, and I hold my hands up at the time. I gave them some stick. I said it looks like they've excluded the dining room table. A couple of people commented later on and said, no, they've got it included. But to be fair, whilst this might be trying to represent a dining room table, it kind of looks more like a tiny kitchen island that's been popped on some yoga mats for them to sit on. So I really don't like the way that looks. And that's unfortunate, because it's the only thing in this set which I think looks pretty rubbish. The rest of it, all fairly nicely detailed. But maybe that's just me. Let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. I feel it lets it down just a tad. It then, of course, also comes with this very ballooned figure of Marge, and also her dog Ripper is in here as well, and Hedwig is knocking them out somewhere too. So pretty decent set. I like that they've done it. Got a lot of positives to it. Just a couple of things that I think could have been done better. Pricing wise, well, you make up your own minds. £80 in the UK, $90 in the States. That's the same in euros, 120 Canadian dollars, and then 150 in Australia. Now, you do get a bit more value for money, at least on a price per piece count anyway, in this next one. Quality Quidditch supplies and the ice cream parlour, specifically Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlour in set 76452. a colourful addition to the Diagon Alley lineup that's going to match in with the likes of Ollivander's and Madame Malkin's robes. And in that respect, they are pretty much just facades in terms of the buildings themselves. Pretty good looking ones, I feel, from the outside. Don't have any complaints there. I think they have done a fairly good job with the way that those look. It's just that when we come round to the interiors, by the very nature of how these are put together, they're so narrow on the inside that we don't have room to position all of our minifigures. It's a real squeeze to get a couple of them in there, and that is a real shame. I do feel that they could have done with some more depth. Now, in terms of the minifigures that we do get, Florian Fortescue is included. I love the way that the torso looks on that. I think that's fantastic. Of course, it goes without saying that naturally all the minifigures we have here don't have any leg printing whatsoever. What a surprise. We also get Cho Chang, Katie Bell, and Alicia Spinett, along with our Mr. Ronald Weasley and an unnamed shopkeeper who does look like a bit of a relation to Professor Sprout, but even in the description that LEGO gives themselves, the identity of said shopkeeper is a mystery. Now, do genuinely let me know in the comments what you feel, not necessarily just about this particular set, but this sort of new rendition of Diagon Alley that they are providing to us, because, I mean, we just had the the micro version of Diagon Alley, which I really liked. I thought that looked cool. Of course, you had the now retiring Collector's Edition, which would then match in with the Collector's Gringotts Bank that came out separately. That was obviously a lot more detailed. And then you've got this. So, as we know, they keep redoing these Harry Potter sets in different scales and layouts. I am not really feeling these. And I'm just genuinely interested to know how many of you listening like them, really. Not just in themselves, because as I've said, I don't think they're bad. There's plenty of this which is good, but compared to the other versions of this Diagon Alley that we've had, I do feel that this is a little bit superfluous. So let me know what you feel about it. $100 for those of you in the States wishing to purchase it, if you're doing so at full retail anyway. $130 in Canada, and then $150 in Australia, whilst across Europe it is €100 and £90 in the British Isles. Next, though, we do have the biggie of this particular wave, the Hogwarts Castle main tower in set 76454. This one packing 2,135 pieces, making it the largest part of the modularized castle that we've had so far, and it is jam-packed full of features. Now, one thing that I will say, just slightly on the negative side, because there's plenty of positives about this, but one thing that I don't like about it is that it seems to be a bit squat. I mean, don't forget, this still isn't in minifigure scale. It couldn't be. It would then have to be a whole load larger yet again. And yet I feel that it suffers from the same problem that Barad-dûr did, i.e. it looks pretty good, but actually it's a bit too squashed. It needed to have at least another section in here to give it some more height. Now, flipping it round on the other side, you've obviously got Dumbledore's office with a much nicer version of Fawkes on the inside, which you can see a little bit better here with the minifig of Dumbledore himself. And then, of course, you've got the movable staircase that goes down the main tower, the Gryffindor common room, and a bunch of other scenes depicting the different trials that they had to do as part of that first book, film, story, etc. Got Fluffy guarding it from up above, and then references to catching the keys on the brooms and obviously the chessboard, etc. So that's all pretty nice. I like the way that they slot in and out, and as we just saw a second ago, there is a good array of minifigs that comes with this set. Now, it's probably worth mentioning, when I first saw this minifigure, my initial reaction was, why have they put Mad-Eye Moody in this particular set, and why on earth have they made him look like this? If you made the same foolish, laudable mistake that I did, then you should know that this is in fact Professor Kettleburn, who preceded Hagrid as the Care of Magical Creatures professor at Hogwarts, and I believe, and I'll stand to be corrected, but I believe that we've never had him in LEGO minifigure form before. So, interesting choice, nice addition. Overall, I feel the minifigures in this set are pretty strong. Also, whilst the different sections that make up this build are fairly small, they do all offer a good amount of playability where you can, to a certain degree, reenact different parts if playing is your thing. Certainly a very sizable build, and is also going to be pretty impressive having on display. And we can see it here with the Grand Hall, obviously sold separately. That really gives you an idea of the whole build coming together. Definitely very sizable. Of course, a lot of the details that are on the inside of this are going to be stickers. That's just always the case with the Harry Potter theme. It's something that is a big bugbear for me. I just don't like them, but I'm long past the stage now of keeping my fingers crossed they might actually do some printed versions. It's just not going to happen. And at least on the upside, once you do apply them, they certainly add a lot of color and depth to the interior of the build. Now, pricing on this, $260, $330 in Canada, in Australia, $400, and then it's €250 and £230. Now, the last set for Harry Potter in June is another one that's a bit different. It's the Thestral family in 76458, and I think they actually look pretty good. I really like the wings on our adult Thestral here. The way they've been done is super. Of course, you've got the molded versions on the little one. That makes sense too, and actually look pretty good. And the whole naturally skeletal nature of these builds are really depicted very well in the parts usage that's gone on here. Quite graceful, actually, in the way that it's been constructed. It does also come with a little bit of terrain to represent the Forbidden Forest, although that is just so small that it's really stupid they even included it, quite frankly. I hate it when they do this. It feels insulting. It's like they've just added in those extra couple bits of pieces to up the piece count, and it's not necessary when I think the Thestrals themselves, the main stars of the show, are actually really good. You've got nice amount of posability to them, articulation going throughout, the glow in the dark that's been done for the little 1x1 round plate pieces on the eyes. What a great touch. That's going to look super when it does get into the dark. And you can see best from the marketing image here, these are actually pretty sizable, especially the adult one, obviously. But the little Thestral, that's fairly good for playability-wise. And then, yeah, you've got your adult one for the main display factor. I feel it's a really strong set, just totally unnecessary to include that tiny bit of forest in there. This is definitely a set that I would want to pick up though, and I just really appreciate the way, the wings can be folded down, the legs in and under, that level of extra positioning. That does make all the difference, I think, for a set like this. So pretty good job all around, I have to say. Pricing for these ones, once again, I think that it could have and should have been a bit cheaper, and it certainly would be nicer if it was. However, it's not one of those outlandishly priced sets that when I see, I just go mad about. Yes, it's only 548 pieces, but actually, when they're all put together, pretty impressive set. Now, it is the same price in euros, £60 in the UK, and then for Canada, you're looking at $90, $110 in Australia. And again, some regions you can pre-order this, others you're just going to have to wait. Now we come to the Icons theme, and of course, the Sherlock Holmes book nook in set 10351. I really limit the number of Lego sets that I buy these days, but I tell you, this is definitely going to be a day one purchase for me. I'll even do a little review and pop it on the channel for those of you who are interested, because I'm just such a massive Sherlock Holmes fan, and finally, Lego have actually given us a set. Of course, for those of you who don't wish to display it as a book nook, you can open it out and have it on display like this instead, and it's a fairly nice display. I think it's a little bland in places, but only if being particularly critical, because overall it's a fairly nice shape, good amount of colouring, little references there. You've got the Elementary Bookshop. Reminds me of that silly pun. Sherlock Holmes walks in with an armful of lemons, and Watson says, "Sherlock, where did you get all those lemons from?" "A lemon tree, my dear Watson." Yes, I can hear the groans from here. I know, it was terrible, wasn't it? I tell you what I do like is the classic silhouette that we have of Sherlock here and his dear stalker put on the side of the book, as it would be here. And as for the interior, there's also a nice amount of references for Sherlock fans to different cases and clues, although from what I've seen from the pictures, I'm a little bit disappointed that there aren't more. Now, I will withhold judgment on that, because it could be the case that when you actually get this in person, there might turn out to be a lot more in there. So there's always that caveat. But from what I can see here, yes, there are some, and that's great, but I definitely feel that there could have been more. Then again, that probably won't bother most people. It's just that I love the Sherlock Holmes stories so much. I've read them loads. I've listened to them loads. Anybody who likes audiobooks, Stephen Fry has narrated all of them, and it's absolutely fantastic. And then, of course, there's all the great movies, from the ones with Basil Rathbone through to the ones with, of course, Robert Downey Jr. and the more modern TV appearances with Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch. I say modern, it's been quite a few years now. But there's just so many iterations, and what a wonderful, incredible world the Sherlockian one is. Now, as for the minifigures themselves, they are, of course, a big draw to this, and I feel are going to be one of the main reasons that people need to buy this set. There are alternatives by LEGO competitors when it comes to the sets themselves, which arguably look even better. But of course, for those who are interested in collecting minifigures, certainly ones of importance like this, it's nice to be able to say that for the most part, these all look really good. Again, I feel that just some added leg printing could have elevated these that little bit more, and would it really have hurt them to do so? However, simultaneously, going with the style of the time, there's no reason that they shouldn't just be like they are. And at least the torsos do look great. There are a couple that I definitely don't like as much. I'm not particularly keen on the way that they've done Moriarty. And many of you may be forgiven for not realising that this is supposedly Irene Adler. So overall, bit of a mixed bag. It's a set that I will definitely get. I'm so glad that they've done it. I think there's lots to really like about it. But maybe I was just overhyped coming into it, really wanting to be excited by it. I do feel not let down. I don't want to say that. I just don't feel quite as in love with it as I feel that I should. It seems to be missing out on just some fairly obvious things to me, and also some changes which just simply aren't necessary given the source material. So let me know what you think about it. I think it's good, but not great. What is your perspective? Will you be buying it or giving it a miss? The last points are that it's 1,359 pieces, priced in at $130 US. That puts it in at around 9.5 cents per piece. It's closer to 8 pence per piece in the UK, priced in at £110. Across Europe, it's 120 euros. And then $150 Canadian, 200 in Australia. Now then, the next set is the Lord of the Rings Book Nook 10367, which LEGO very helpfully haven't put on their website yet, despite it only being a few days until the start of the month. But there we go. Thankfully, Very, I believe, was the first retailer to actually put this on here. I did do a brief video on this individually when these images were first leaked, but was wanting to wait and do a little bit of a closer look at it for this main video on the sets coming next month, with the thinking that LEGO might have actually released the images themselves and therefore they're being a bit higher quality. But no, here we go. We'll just have to make do. So first things first, I think it's safe to say that out of the 3 book nooks that we are getting in June, obviously the Sherlock Holmes one, the Harry Potter, and now this, it's got the least going for it. There's not much making this up. Yes, it's 1,201 pieces, but it really looks like there should be more going on here. When it's opened out, it's just a fairly basic surround for the columns themselves. You've got these few little snaky, whippy pieces representing fire, which I'm sorry, I don't like at all. And it just does not look that substantial. Now, I do think, personally, that when it's folded down into its book nook form like this, it looks a bit better, simply because we don't have just literally it staring us in the face quite how... I'm trying to avoid the word flimsy, but I can't. I think it looks flimsy, all right? There's not that much going on. Now, admittedly, when it's like this, you can't see the Balrog's wings, which I think are the best part of it. Yes, I know a few people have mentioned that they're reusing the ones from the Fellbeast GWP and that they shouldn't do that. And, you know, I respect that opinion, actually, that it's a good point. They should really have done one specifically to this set. However, only in terms of making the Balrog even better. I don't have an issue with them reusing the wings from the Fellbeast just because it was unique to that set. If that upsets you, fine, appreciate that. But at the same time, not everybody was able to get that GWP. So personally, I don't have an issue with the wings being locked away behind it. And I think they are, ironically, the best looking part of the model. The rest of it, I find looks very juniorized, really clunky. Bear in mind, this is supposed to be an icon set, an 18 plus set, one for adults. It's not cheap, as we'll get onto in a moment. And this really looks like a sort of young LEGO fans construction figure. I don't like it at all. The printing, it's not great, but I don't mind it. I think it's okay. Again, seen quite a few negative comments about it, and I totally get that. It's just not my biggest bugbear with it, and I think the mouth is okay. So whilst it definitely could have and should have been better, the head isn't the bit that really bothers me. It's pretty much just all the body. Now, as for Gandalf, again, it's a little bit difficult to say for sure until LEGO does officially reveal this, but it looks to me like it's exactly the same version that we've seen of him before. And it would have been nice, again, if they could have just done slightly different printing on this. That would have at least been some extra intrigue, but it does look to be exactly the same. Now, pricing for this, the retailer Very has it at £105. That may well be the retail price for it. However, the information I have is that it's actually going to be retailing for £110 British pounds, $130 and €120. No confirmation on Canadian or Australian yet, I'm afraid, but I've held off on doing this video for as long as possible. They've still not revealed it. This is the best that I can currently do, I'm afraid. I'll update it in the pinned comment down below once it is fully revealed by them. And of course, literally within a matter of a couple of days, they should have it up on the site. So you can go and confirm the price for yourself at that point. The thing is, it is overpriced. I think most of us can see that, but that really isn't the thing that bothers me with this. I just feel that a set needs to be good, regardless of whether it's $10, $100, $1,000. It's almost irrelevant in the sense that price alone shouldn't dictate whether a set is good or not. It should also be down to, is it a good-looking set that you'd be proud to have on display? And I think that this had the chance of being so positive. And there are parts of it I want to be enthusiastic about. I do like the wings. I don't mind the face, personally. But the rest of it is just a bit of a letdown. Now, I do love that they are branching out into more Lord of the Rings sets. I love the big collector sets. I don't mind that they're expensive as long as they're good quality. Rivendell was fantastic. Barad-dûr, not quite so much, but I still really like it. The Shire, I definitely feel that could have been better, but in general, I really do like the collector sets. I don't want them to stop doing it. I want one for Rohan, Minas Tirith, everything, but I'd also like some smaller sets. I don't think we'll ever get battle packs, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that might happen in future. And if this is a signal that we could be getting other sets outside of those big collectors ones, be it more book nooks or just ones depicting particular scenes, that is a good thing in my opinion if they're done well. Sadly, this just isn't. It's such an iconic scene. I don't feel it would have taken much changing around in order to have got it right, but let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. Unfortunately, never mind, you shall not pass. This is one that I am going to have to piss on. Sorry, I mean pass on. I don't know why I just said piss on. I'm annoyed with myself for saying that. That is really infuriating. I'd have done it again. I don't know why I'm saying that. How very strange. I do apologise. It really is a brilliant marketing image, this one, isn't it? I guess that's one way of putting the fire out. But there we go. Time to move on. We can now take a look at The Simpsons Krusty Burger in set 10352. It says coming on June the 4th. That's only because I'm not logged in. Okay, if you are a Legos Insider, then you will get early access to the set. Now, it's been a long time waiting for the return of a Simpsons set, and thankfully, I don't think that this disappoints. It captures all of the same wonderful colour and character that the old sets did. I am a little bit perplexed by the inclusion of the clown car, but I mean, it's good to get a vehicle. It just seems an odd choice to put in here, but hey, better to have it than not. And the minifigures as well, for the most part, are really good. Admittedly, I'm not so keen on Sideshow Bob or the Krusty figure, but maybe, again, that's just me. Let me know your feelings on them. The rest, I certainly think, all look great. And the build itself, the level of detailing is super. I mean, the outside looks cool, but then we get to the inside and just the amount that's going on here is awesome. I must obviously reference again that quite a lot of these are stickers, which I really hate, and it would have been nice, especially on an icon set like this, if they could have just given us some printed pieces rather than so many stickers. But I do appreciate that doesn't bother everybody. Kind of just feels a little bit unfortunate though, especially considering the pricing of this set is not cheap. So yeah, some printed pieces would definitely have been an appreciated bonus here in my opinion. One main thing is for sure though, and that is that there is a lot of fun references throughout this set, which is exactly what you'd expect. Of course, one of the biggest thing about The Simpsons and also the prior sets that we've had in the past is just how vibrant they all are, and this does not disappoint in that regard at all. I also really like the sign. I think that is fantastic. So there is a lot to love about this set. I think it's going to definitely be one that fans go for. It's also going to come with a GWP that we'll have a look at in a minute. So with that in mind, probably will sell out quite quickly and a lot of people will want this. So keep that in mind, even though I do feel that the price is rather hard to swallow. $210 US, even considering everything that's been going on, I think that this could have come in for less than that, especially considering the huge number of stickers that are going on throughout this set. So, you know, for 1,635 pieces, surely they could have got this at below $200. And that for me is probably the biggest letdown of what is otherwise a really cool new build. And, you know, fingers crossed, they may even keep giving us some more Simpsons sets going forwards as well. Now, in Canada, $260, Australia, $330, then €200 across Europe, and in the UK, it's £180. Now, as for the GWP, you can get the build of the Simpsons living room. Now, it is admittedly a very small little add-on build and perhaps a little bit out of place if you don't have any of the other previous Simpsons sets. However, for what's included, it does look pretty nice, and I do think it's something that's going to be sold out fairly quickly. You know, this set as a whole is just more than likely going to be one that unfortunately suffers from scalping. So if you do want this, probably going to need to try and get it sooner rather than later, because I suspect that otherwise you're going to have to be paying quite a bit over the odds for this on the secondary market. Maybe I'll be wrong, who knows? That's just the advice that I think suitable to give. Now though, from icons we move to ideas and set 21357, the Disney Pixar Luxo Junior lamp. And yes, I could have included this really under the Disney section, but it is a Lego ideas set, so it kind of makes sense for me to put it under here. It's only 613 pieces, but you know what? The way that they've done this, I think looks really good. Admittedly, a little bit clunky just around this center section compared to the actual animated model that they use. However, you are of course limited on what you can use piecewise in order to be able to get the level of articulation that this has to it. And overall, I think looks pretty great. And the way that they've done the ball as well, that is super. Also great to see, considering the hold-ups that they had in actually getting this approved from a licensing point of view, that they've managed to produce the model in a really quick time. And the different ways that you can display it, pretty awesome. I've got to say, I really like this set. It's fun, it's quirky, just so recognizable. It was a great fan submission, to be fair. Really good design. And the way that it has now been put into official Lego form doesn't disappoint. And that's a really refreshing thing to say about the Lego Ideas submissions. So often they can spoil them. And, you know, something like this, you'd like to think, well, how could they possibly spoil it? Well, thankfully they haven't. It is a really good looking model. Price-wise, pretty accessible too, fairly decent. $70 in the States, €70, 60 British pounds, and then in Australia, $110 and $90 in Canada. Also from LEGO Ideas is going to be the minifigure vending machine in set 21358. Definitely one of the more innovative ones that we've had submitted and improved in quite some time. Yes, it has a big nostalgia factor for those who remember this, but even if you don't, it doesn't matter. This is just a really cool build. You actually get a Lego coin that you can pop in, you turn the handle, and that's going to drop out one of these 16 little capsules, which then contains your elements for the buildable minifigures. My only issue with this is that part of me wants to have all of them in there, and then the other part wants to have them all on display. So that's going to be quite irritating. Of course, as for the minifigures themselves, it's jam-packed in this set. And it's a really nice lineup. It's a shame that the printing on these isn't quite up to the same level that you'd expect from an actual collectible minifigure series. I mean, I kind of guessed that we couldn't expect that. However, when you bear in mind the cost and what that is compared to the collectible minifigures, you kind of think maybe they could have done a little bit more. But at the same time, this is, look, a really nice one to actually get. We had the fan vote, obviously, over what space figures to get, what castle factions to have, so interesting to see which ones of those actually won out. I particularly like the pirate torsos, and you know, it's nice to get representation for Fabuland as well. So there's just loads going on in this set. The build itself as well, I think that looks spot on. I really liked the way that the fan designer put it together and submitted it, and it's nice to see that Lego have pretty much kept it how it was. Any changes that have been made are just simply to improve it. The overall shaping, all the colours used, I really like it. I think it's one of those times where it highlights the brilliance of the LEGO Ideas program. You know, the BrickLink Designer program, that is great, but you generally kind of know that what wins out is what you're going to get, because the whole purpose of it is that the design should pretty much be ready to box up and send out with only a few tweaks, whereas LEGO Ideas is just very much about the core concept, and therefore the finished result can be massively different from what's initially put forward. So the fact they've managed to retain this in the way that it has been, I think it speaks volumes for how good that program can be when they get it right. So this is an absolutely super build. And of course, having all those minifigures just adds to it. I would be really surprised if this doesn't prove to be a pretty popular set. With that in mind, again, coming soon, June the 4th, you can get early access if you sign in as a Legos Insider. I personally would probably be waiting and trying to pick this up either at a discount or when there's double points, something like that, because as much as I really like it, think that the build itself is fabulous, I am not on board with the pricing. 1,343 pieces for $180 US. This is why I was saying I feel that, especially if they were going to be asking this pricing, the quality of those minifigures just needed to be that bit better up there with your collectible minifigs in terms of printing. Maybe then I could have got on board. It just doesn't really quite feel like it's the right value for money. Let me know if you agree or disagree with that in the comments. In Europe, it's going to come in at 170 euros, whilst in Canada, it's $220, 250 Australian, and 150 British pounds. On now, though, to Jurassic World, and we shall begin with set 76970, the baby dinosaur Dolores Aquilops. At least I assume that's how you pronounce it. This a little 339 7+ set based around the Jurassic World Rebirth movie, which admittedly I haven't seen, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that this is a good interpretation of it. Looks to me like a fun little build, nicely colourful, decent amount of articulation on there, and also a fairly good size. So all of that, considering that the price point is fairly accessible, actually, I think this is a decent little set. Should make for a good gift, and one that certainly isn't badly priced, which is nice and refreshing to be able to say. $28, of course, for those of you in the States, whereas in Canada, 30, Australia, 35, Europe, that's 25 euros, whereas it's £20 in the UK. Then there will also be 76972, the Raptor Off-Road Escape, again from the Rebirth movie, which I don't think is coming out until July of 2025. So again, not having been able to see it yet, it's kind of difficult to know exactly how well this is representing it. Going by the trailer though, all looks pretty decent, and the build itself as we have here, that's certainly fun. Decent size again, and actually I don't mind when you have little add-on foliage builds. I know I was knocking it earlier with a different set, but when it's like this and it's a bit more substantial to it, it's adding to the scene, and I think that does make it look quite a bit better. So this one, it's a 6+ set. They're never great on the price compared to the piece count. Only 285 pieces to this. It is expensive. However, I can, in all fairness, considering the fact that you get the little off-road vehicle that we have here and also the dinosaur, etc., there is fun to be had there. So it's not great, but it's not terrible, I don't think. Of course, that value does always vary by region. So $45 in Canada, Australian it's 60, then £30 in the UK, and 35 euros. Also coming is set 76973, the Raptor and Titanosaurus tracking mission. This one obviously boasting the biggest of the dinosaurs in the wave, and a very impressive looking one too. I do like collecting the dinosaurs. And that's a bit of a problem because it invariably means that I end up having to get these sets, or at least buy the dinosaurs on the secondary market out of them, because the value for money isn't fantastic on them. Now, to be fair, the minifigs, they're all looking pretty good to me. Torso prints look cool. We've got a little bit of printing on the legs as well, which is nice. Now, I don't know if it's just the image, but the arms of our minifigure here don't seem to quite match in colour-wise with the face or even the hands. And that is an issue we've seen on ones in the past. Sometimes they seem to get it spot on, other times they don't. So that's a little bit of a shame, but try not to detract from what is otherwise a pretty fun-looking set. It's got plenty of accessories to it, reasonable sort of size, so okay for play. However, a lot of these Jurassic World sets don't have a huge amount of substance when it comes to the buildings. I think this one benefits from having a fair few little side builds and vehicles that you can play around with too. But when you consider there isn't much substance to this, the pricing is more difficult to justify. Yes, it's great to get the dinosaurs, they always put it up, but this is a 582-piece set and it's $110. So definitely one that I wouldn't be going near at retail price. I personally would wait until there was a serious discount. It's a bit less in Europe, 100 euros, and £90 in the UK. Of course, for Canada, $130, and in Australia, $150. Then we have set 76974, the 858-piece brick-built Mosasaurus boat mission. And credit where it's due, I feel this is certainly much better value for money than that previous submission. Our brick-built dino here is certainly a lot more sizable. From the look of it, these are printed pieces rather than stickers, and I think a pretty good looking display piece, as well as something that's going to be a nice amount of fun to play with. The boat is a pretty decent inclusion as well. You know, nice size-wise, looks pretty good. These little bits of terrain, rather than having no purpose, as we see in some other sets, are actually perfect here for staging. So perfect to include. You know, when I criticise things like the Harry Potter sets earlier, where it's a bit silly to include something, that's because it doesn't have a function. Here, it does, and that is great. So I really like the look of this one. I think it's one of the strongest ones that we've got this year. Obviously, $60 in the States, $80 in Canada, $100 in Australia, €60, and £55. Additionally, there is the T-Rex River Escape, a 5+ set with 199 pieces, the main attraction, of course, being our little T-Rex that we have here. Reasonable looking couple of minifigures as well, to be fair. And this is just a very small and juniorized set, which I think for the target age demographic would provide a reasonable amount of fun. Of course, the cost won't be quite so fun for any parents involved, because this one is $50 in the States, exactly the same in euros, £45, and then 65 Canadian, 80 in Australia. The last Jurassic World set, though, is the biggest, coming in at 984 pieces. This is set 76976, the Spinosaurus and Quetzalcoatlocotl Air Mission. And yes, I probably haven't said that right, I am fully aware. Answers on a postcard, please. Now, this one is an 8+ set, and if we steer clear of price for a minute, this is pretty impressive looking. I love the dinosaurs that we've got in this one, just so cool. I might not be able to pronounce the name, but I appreciate how they look. The added bonus of having the helicopter and the truck as well, they're nice looking, make for fun play features, and it does look like there's a little bit of interactivity in the main build itself. And all of that definitely ups the play value. I think the pieces that they've used are really nice in this. Once again, printing on the minifigures looks pretty good, and it might have just been that earlier marketing image, because certainly in this one it does seem like they've managed to get the skin tone colour matching better. So can't tell for sure without physically having the minifigure in hand. It might have just been that previous marketing image. The overall build is also nicely sized. Now, of course, being the biggest, looking really good, which I think it does, having those extra vehicles and, of course, those dinosaurs too does mean that the price is that little bit higher again, although it's not the worst on a price per piece basis. So at least we can take some solace in that. $160, 150 euros, 140 pounds, and then 200 Canadian, 230 Australian. Also, quick mention here, it's got nothing to do with Jurassic World, but it seems like a good place to put it in. If you like collecting keychains, then you've now got the T-Rex Suit Guy keychain that's going to be coming out next month as well. So, on now then to the Marvel theme, just a couple coming out in June, the first being this 76316 Fantastic Four versus Galactus in construction figure form. Now look, it's fair to say right from the get-go, I'm not a fan of construction figures. I never have been, and therefore my opinion on this is going to be slightly biased because I just don't like the look of them. However, with that said, I've got to say that I think as construction figures go, this doesn't seem to be a particularly bad one. It appears like it's going to have a reasonable amount of articulation in there, and overall the colouring and size look to be pretty decent. You know, this image probably highlights that the best. It's certainly of a decent size in terms of playability. However, as it's the only set relating to the Fantastic Four, it's a little bit of a letdown that it's quite so cartoonish and juniorized in its appearance. You know, thinking of something like the buildable version of Ant-Man that we get in a couple of the Marvel sets, just seems to lend itself a little bit more towards your adult collector, as well as, of course, being a kid-friendly set. Now, as for the minifigures themselves, printing's pretty nice. Shame we couldn't have had some dual moulding on the legs. Pretty much come not to expect that now. Obviously, a fair few accessories that you can put with them. I would like to know what you think, though, about the Thing, because I do not like the way that this has now been done at all. Admittedly, in the new movie, he's not taller than any of the other characters, but it's not just his hands that are really bulky. It's all of him, so a normal minifigure then just looks all the more silly when you are putting it with the big hands. And as for the top of the head, that is kind of how it looks now in the way they've done it for the new movie. I just don't like it overall, but let me know what you think of it. If this is a set that you want to be getting, then it's 427 pieces for $60 in the States. In Canada, that is $80, 100 Australian, 60 in euros, and £55. And then the other Marvel set for June is 76327, being Iron Man Mark IV's bust. Apparently, they were going to do Wonder Woman's bust, but couldn't get a big enough curvature with the Lego bricks. Anyway, this one is 436 pieces. It also comes with a new minifigure, the first time that we've had this version of Iron Man, and it's not a bad looking one, although it is a shame that they haven't done arm printing for it. You know, I really like the torso, the leg printing, fantastic, but it did really need it on the arms too, so that just seems like a silly omission to have made. And it is the little things like that that annoy me, because it's great that they've done this minifigure. A lot of people are going to want this version of Iron Man. Would it really have killed them just to do the arm printing? Who knows? And it's a shame because it deducts a point from what would otherwise be a great minifig. As for the bust itself, decent size. It's also a good way that they've gone direction-wise, rather than just focusing in on the helmet as they've done before, to now get in this full section. And in terms of displayability, so we can see here, seems to have a reasonably nice range of movement there. Really like the shoulders. The inclusion for that, for the weaponry, is great. The actual plaque itself is a little bit lackluster, I think. Yeah, Lego Marvel Iron Man Mark IV. Perhaps maybe they could have just put some more information in there, reference to Iron Man 3. I don't know, let me know what you think. I just feel it seems a little bit plain. However, at least it is printed rather than being a sticker. And after all, it's only an aside, because the main draw is the build itself. And to be fair, I think it all looks really nicely detailed. The finish is good, the coloring's nice. Overall size, as I mentioned, is up there. So this is a pretty strong set. Couple of silly little things that I think would have made it that much better, but overall I like the look of it. I think they've done a pretty decent job. As for pricing, you can of course make up your own mind. $60 in the States, 100 in Australia, 80 for Canada, and then 60 euros and £55. Now that's it for Marvel. Before we get to Minecraft, I'm going to stop in at the other theme. I'm going to put it in here, sort of classing it as miscellaneous in terms of going alphabetically for anybody who's wondering. This is 40807, the birthday numbers, obviously just a 6+ set. Nice and colourful, including some different representations of various animals, from your toucan to your cockerel and your flamingo. I do think it's pretty fun and colourful looking. It allows you to count from 0 up to 9. Obviously you could make 10 or a variety of other numbers as well, but not if you're all lining them out in a row. Now, I am assuming that they've had to class this as a 6+ set because of the small pieces in it, but really, I mean, most 6-year-olds are going to be well beyond being able to count only up to 9 or 10. So I'd say that this is actually for a much younger demographic, but it's quite nice. Pricing-wise, £18, 20 euros, and then in dollars, it's 20 for the States, 25 Canadian, 35 Australian. Then there is the baby elephant in the sky in set 40814, and I did do a bit of a double take when I first saw that it was an 18+ set, but of course it's aimed to be a gift for new parents, featuring your little baby elephant sat upon a cloud, which you can put in a diaper and have a balloon made up of various different colours. So you can choose from obviously the green that we see here, along with blue, pink and gold. And, you know, it's not what I would automatically think of, but I guess it's a fairly sweet little gift to give, though I imagine that the mother will not want her baby to come out the size of an elephant. That would leave some very serious stretch marks. Ouch. $30 for that one in the States, 40 Canadian, 50 in Australia, 30 euros and £25. Then there'll also be the birthday party cake in set 40815, 219 pieces for this colourful little 7+ set. I do like the way that the chocolate sort of looks like it's melting down over the edges. Just a fairly harmless little set that should be quite fun to decorate in whatever way a kid sees fit. £13, 15 euros, same in dollars, 18 Canadian, 25 Australian. And then it's the return of the postcards in 40818, this time with Italy. In general, I do like these. I think they make for just very small, fun, colourful little displays, which you can easily pop round on a shelf or anywhere you want in the house. They're not going to take up much room, but they're quite quirky and cool. You obviously got the Leaning Tower of Pisa, some different ruins, the Venetian Bridge, just generally nice little scenery. What is a bit of a shame is that the plaque upon the front, which you can have either saying Italy or Italia, those are stickers, not printed tiles. Hey, what can you do? Overall, it's pretty nice. I've got all the other postcards to date, and we'll probably be adding this one, I suspect. $15 the price, unless you're in Canada, in which case it's 19, 25 for Australia, and then €15 or £13.50. It's time for Minecraft now, though, and we start here with 21274, the Warden Encounter. A fairly formidable foe that should generally be avoided if you don't want to be crushed to pieces. This one comes in at 238 pieces, speaking of, and I think it's pretty cool actually to now have this rather imposing representation of the character. It does have a small amount of playability as well, so you pull this and it makes the TNT and the rocks come down, and overall, although just a pretty small build, is fairly reasonable value for money. I think this one coming in at £18, $20 US and €20, along with being 25 Canadian and 30 in Australia. Then there's going to be 21275, the TNT Jungle House, obviously looking like a big TNT box. This one coming with a character of Steve along with Zombie and Creeper, and boasts an even bigger play functionality than the previous one, because with this, when you pull the switch, the entire thing actually falls down. So fantastic if you like putting things constantly back together again. But to be fair, this one is a little bit more substantial again, and actually not too bad on a price per piece basis. Comes in at $30, 40 for Canada, 50 Australian, €30 and £25. You've then got a big buildable version of Creeper in 21276, and because it's made up of so many small pieces, 665 total for the set, it's not bad on a price per piece count. I can't imagine that it's going to be the most fun thing to actually put together, made up of all of these small parts, but you know, the finished result, that's certainly pretty fun. It's got some nice features to it as well. So I definitely think that that would be appreciated and fairly good value. So $40 for that one. And that is the same in euros. Whilst in the UK, it's going to be £35 and $70 in Australia, 50 in Canada. Slightly worse value, but admittedly still sizable, is 21277, the Pickaxe Mine. And also probably coming with more play features as well, just by the very nature of it. $70 in Canada for this one, which really doesn't seem too bad for what you're getting. In the US, it's 55, Australia 90, and then Europe 55, whilst in the UK, it's going to be £50. Now, switching over to Ninjago, there's only 2 coming next month, but they are pretty impressive. The first is this 71846, the Fire Knight mech, and I really like the way that this looks. You know, they said they were going to shy away from the more adult versions of mechs again, and whilst this isn't up there with Cole's from last year in terms of overall detailing, it's still really good. Yeah, I'm not convinced that the articulation is going to be quite as good just looking at some of these connectors, but you're still going to be able to get pretty reasonable positioning on this, and I love the colour. The size is obviously fairly imposing as well. I'm not a fan of the hands, unfortunately. They do seem to let it down, but otherwise, most of the pieces that have been used going into this are pretty decent. I'm not quite so keen on the minifigs, actually, which is unusual for Ninjago. I feel that these aren't quite up to the normal quality standard in terms of the printing, but hey, maybe that's just me. The overall build itself, though, really impressive. Love the variety of ways that this can be displayed. I think that's so cool. And again, it's another one which, yes, it's aimed at a bit of a younger demographic, but I think plenty of adult fans of Lego are going to be happy to get this as well. The cape, by the way, that's magnificent how they've done that. It looks absolutely brilliant. So I think it's one of the Ninjago sets where if you're a little bit picky on which ones you go for, or if it's not one of the themes that you're normally into, this is actually something that you could quite happily buy and put on display. I think it is a pretty strong entry. Now, pricing, as we know, across the board has suffered really. Just less than 1,000 pieces of this one, $120 in the States. Now, that's the same in euros, whilst it's £110, $150 in Canada, and $200 for Australia. So I do think it's a nice set, but it is a little bit high price-wise. I'd wait for a bit of a deal of some sort on that one. But even more imposing is the Guardian Dragon in 71847. This coming with 1,650 pieces, and you can really see the size and scale of this. I think it looks absolutely stunning. I love the colour combinations that have been used here. Captured it all really well. The overall shaping and positioning, It's one of the best dragons that they've done, I think. Minifigure of Master Wu looks really good as well, and I really feel that this isn't so much a play piece. This is all about display, and it just looks really epic. I mean, obviously you can move the arms, legs around, tail. I love the look of the wings. You know, I freely admit I'm not a huge Ninjago fan. There's only just a few sets of it that I own, the ones that I really like the look of. But I've got to say, this is up there with them. You know, I don't watch, you know, the series and stuff, so there could well be details in here that are inaccurate, and I'd hold my hands up to that. I'm not the authority on Ninjago, but just looking at this as a standalone set from an outside perspective, I think it's really impressive. It's also pretty good value for money as well. $150. That is not bad for what you're getting here. It's exactly the same price in euros, whilst in Canada you're looking at $200. In Australia it's going to be $250, so definitely more steep there, unfortunately. But in the UK you're looking at £150. So only those two sets for Ninjago in June, but I think they're both strong, and this one in particular I think is pretty epic indeed. As for Speed Champions, set 77241 is definitely one for fans of Too Fast and Too Furious, coming with a minifigure of Suki and of course her incredibly detailed and extraordinarily colourful Honda S2000. You know, unsurprisingly, I'm not really one for pink builds, but I love the way this looks. I think they've done an absolutely cracking job. I mean, look, I hate stickers. I've said it so many times. I'm not going to bang on about it. However, this absolutely needs to have them. They could never be printed. This is a Speed Champions set. There's so many needed for this. And whilst I think it'd just be horrible to have to apply them and get them all lined up, etc., the finished result unquestionably is worth it because this looks awesome. I really like the detailing of it. The shaping is great. The colour is mostly spot on. I suppose that is the only minor drawback to some of these stickers. In places it doesn't quite match in with the underlying colours beneath. But I think the way that it does change throughout really helps to sort of blend through the car. And for the most part is a really good job. As for the minifigure of Suki herself, and that well. And I think it goes without saying, obviously if you are a Too Fast, Too Furious fan, this is definitely one for you. But even if you're not and you just like the general Speed Champions lineup, this is a really nice, different one to be added to the lineup. Super strong, and I think they've done a great job. I mean, look, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but certainly for those that it's aimed at, I'll be surprised if they're not happy. I think it's a really good job all round. Now, $27 in the States, the price for this one. Canada, $35. Australia 40, whilst it's 27 euros and 23 pounds. Just the one for Speed Champions though, so it's time to move to Star Wars and set 75400. This is just a 6+ set and only 89 pieces, but it's one that's been done really well. I think the colour choices here are great on a little microfighter. It is a shame that you don't get a whole droid here, so you can't take that out and have it as a separate character. It's just the head attached to the microfighter itself. But apart from that, I think it looks great. But of course, it's the minifigure that is so good here. I love the molded head that we've got on this. And to be fair, all of the printing on the torso and down onto the dual molded legs, really good. I mean, this is a level of detail we rarely see from Star Wars minifigures. So to be able to get it here in a cheap, affordable 6+ set, I think that's great. And let's be frank, that's what most people are going to be buying this for, just the minifigure. But actually, you know, the build of the microfighter itself, I don't think that's bad at all. I've seen some people giving this a hard time, saying that it's overpriced. And as you know, I'm not shy on holding back on Lego when I do think they do that to sets. But in this instance, bearing in mind it is a 6+ one, and for the level of detailing and quality that we're getting here, personally, I don't think it's outrageous, to be fair. So $15 in the States, 18 in Canada, 25 for Australia, and then 15 euros, 13 British pounds. We've then got 75411, the Darth Maul mech, and the mech itself, I guess, is just a fun little add-on for kids. Don't have too much of an issue with that, although it's fairly small, of course. The main point of interest, usually, certainly for adult fans, are the minifigs included with this. I still have a real issue with the fact that they've not done pupils. Some of the characters get away with it, but Darth Maul is just not one of them. So whilst, yes, the printing throughout the rest is really great, I cannot personally get past the eyes. I find it a stupid change, and I'd much prefer it if they went back to how they used to do it. But of course, I'm sure there will be those who disagree, so let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments. pricing for this, $18. That definitely seems quite high when you then consider it's €15. As for the UK, £13, Australia $25, and Canada $18, same as in the States. And then, of course, there is the Death Trooper and Night Trooper Battle Pack in 75412. And whilst the ship is fairly condensed, a little bit underwhelming in the way it looks, it does have space on the inside, all 4 minifigures in. There's also a couple of blasters on it as well. But the main draw, of course, for this are our 4 minifigures of the 2 Death Troopers and Night Troopers in their zombified fashion. And again, considering how some of the really expensive UCS sets that we get have some pretty poorly printed minifigures, it just goes to show you what they can do, because these are brilliant. I love the printing, the dual molding on the legs. The torsos are wonderfully detailed, and they seem to have managed to get the color matching really nice on these too. Everything about them, actually. Some of the best that I think I've seen in a long time. So this is one battle pack that I feel is definitely going to prove popular just purely for these minifigs. I mean, to be fair, I'm perhaps being a little bit harsh on the actual ship itself. It's not terrible, and at least you can fit all of them in there. That's the main thing. I just find it a little bit meh looking, you know, nothing too special. But yeah, these minifigs, absolutely fantastic. Now, pricing for these, not quite so fantastic anymore, but I don't think it's going to stop the popularity of this. $23 in the States, $25 in Canada, $30 for my Australian chums, and then €20 and 18 British pounds. Now, of course, that brings us to the Technic theme, something nobody could have seen coming unless, of course, you know the alphabet. And set 42209 is the electric Volvo wheel loader, a 9+ set, which is pretty good looking, fairly substantial. If we have a look at this image here, you can get an idea of the scale of it a little bit more. Has a decent amount of functionality, and I think comes in the area with Technic builds of offering a reasonable challenge. You know, you can always learn something when putting these together, so quite educational, but it's obviously not a massive model, so it's not going to be really difficult to put together if you're new to Technic. Now, overall, I do like the look of this. The functionality is pretty decent on it as well. The pricing, however, is a little bit more questionable. It's not terrible, so 973 pieces. In the UK, it's coming in at £90. The model is overall pretty decent. Of course, if you're in the States, that does jump up to $120. That makes it quite a bit less favourable. For Canada, $140, $150 in Australia, and €100. Now, after the Too Fast, Too Furious set we had for Speed Champions earlier, it's the turn of the Nissan Skyline for the Technic theme in set 42210. This one, 1,410 pieces, and I've got to say, I'm really not keen on it. The shaping is okay, although I don't feel fantastic. There are certain places where the pieces aren't just marrying up quite nicely enough, but that's a minor thing. I could get past that because I want to like this vehicle. I would really like to get it, but what I can't get past is the abundance of stickers that are being used in here. You know, I gave the Speed Champions one a pass, obviously because of its price point and what it is, but this is a Technic set, and no, not everything can be printed, but come on. I mean, even the indicators being stickers, that could easily be brick built. I mean, hello Lego, you do orange translucent pieces that you could use for this, and then all of the stickers down the side here. This is going to be such a pain to line up, and I'm sorry, if you get these even mildly not quite in line, you know, just look at this. You get even one of those out of line, that is going to be really irritating. And for those of you who don't mind stickers, look, fine. If it doesn't bother you, that's great, and I do respect your opinion. But for me, and I think a lot of other people, it's really annoying, especially when you get ones like this where the grey doesn't even match in, not even closely, with the colour of the underlying piece. And I'm afraid it just ruins this for me. I like the rest of the detailing on the interior. That's cool. It's got steering as well, which naturally it should have, and it would be silly if they excluded it, but sometimes they do that. So it's good to see it's got that. The couple of issues with shaping, personally, I could get past. I think in that regard, generally, pretty good set, but the stickers absolutely ruin this for me, and I don't think that it should be done, especially on a set that is of this price point either. And that's a real shame, because I was wanting this set when it was first announced. I was looking forward to it. There have been some fantastic mocks done of this on the likes of Rebrickable, etc. And so this for me is a bit of a letdown. Let me know what you think about that down in the comments. $140 US they want for this. As for Canada, you're going to have to fork out 180. In Australia, they want 250. And then in the UK, you're looking at £130. And for Europe, the RRP is €140. Then there's also going to be the Chevrolet Corvette Stingray Blue in 42217, 732 pieces to this one, and I feel it's a little bit of a mixed bag because there's certain parts of this where the shaping looks really good and then other bits that seem to let it down. So particularly from the side aspect, I really like it. I think it looks very nice. If we move around to the rear as well, the way that this is all proportioned, that looks good. Also, whilst we're around here, nice bit of functionality, decent detailing. Obviously on the inside, yes, there are some stickers, but they're much fewer, less vital. The colour does seem to match in a bit more, so I don't mind that. But yeah, around the front, and particularly from this sort of angle, a little bit gappy in places, much more than we normally see, and just some of the shaping does look to be a little bit off. I also really don't like it when they use pins of contrasting colours. It's just a bugbear of mine and winds me up. So, you know, this one's all right, but it's not the most exciting of Technic sets that we have ever seen by any extent of the imagination, I don't think. Pricing €60, and it's $60 in the States, 80 in Canada, 100 in Australia, and £55. Now, before we end, it's worth mentioning that the BrickLink Designer Program Series 5 is getting ready for pre-ordering or crowdfunding. That's going to be happening on June 10th. So these 5 sets are going to become available for ordering next month as well. And let's just take a very quick look at each of these. First up is the Thieves of Tortuga. As a huge Pirates fan, I would go so far as to say that this is the best pirate set that we have had since the Barracuda Bay from LEGO Ideas. It's even better. I'm going to go as far as to say I think it's even better than Eldorado Fortress. Just much as I love that set, just the whole way and vibe that this looks, it's a little bit unfair to compare the two, to be honest. It's apples and oranges, but personal preference. I just think that this looks absolutely fantastic. Really strong submission. Also, bear in mind, it is going to be the only pirate set land-based that we have for a long time. We're yet to find out the results of Series 8. Even if one is picked from that, you've then got to wait another 6 months again before we even get to the crowdfunding stage, and then, of course, even longer until shipping. So this really is one not to miss out on if you are a Pirates fan. I think it's a really cool set. Then, of course, following on from the success of the Mushroom House, got the Mushroom Village, and this is incredibly colourful, wonderfully joyous, obviously a little bit polarising in the sense that just for some people, this will be of no interest whatsoever, but for a large group of others, this is very different and just a bright, happy, joyous thing to be able to put up on display and make you smile every time that you look at it. Now, the antique shop is a little bit of the odd one out in the round, I feel. It's not that it's bad, it's just that compared to the others, it's not up there in terms of the same levels of detail and quality and just general appeal. I think it's fair to say that. If you disagree, let me know in the comments down below. But that one, if you're interested, is also going to be up for sale. And then, of course, you've got Sleepless Night's latest with Adventure in Transylvania. And I love the look of this set. It's so refreshing, wonderfully gothic. No, it's not Dracula's castle, but it might as well be. It's just a brilliant and fantastic thing. Oh, that's interesting. They're actually putting that detailing on the box as well for 25 with BrickLink. That makes it all the more interesting. So just both inside and outside, that set is amazing. And then you've got the little popcorn wagon, which is so wonderful in the way that it's been designed. I find it brilliantly colourful, wonderfully characterful, and very evocative, and certainly one that I would like to be crowdfunding if I can. Now, of course, that brings us on to availability of these. It's limited to 2 per person, and of course, some of these can sell out really very quickly. We might as well start with the obvious one, Adventure in Transylvania. I think that this is going to sell out probably the fastest out of any BrickLink set so far. A lot of that will be down to genuine fans who want it, and unfortunately, as most of us know by now, scalpers will also be after this in their droves. So, not just a matter of hours, seriously, this is going to sell out the quickest, I believe, out of any that we've had in the program so far. So regardless of where you are around the world, whether you're at work, whether you have to wake up in the middle of the night, I know it's a pain, I know it's unfair, but here's the thing, if you want it, that's what you're going to have to do. Don't think that it's going to last for a few hours until the morning, because I will be absolutely shocked if it does. Now, if you do happen to miss out, make sure to keep watching my channel because there could be a way that you could still get your hands on one of these, but I'll save more on that for a later video. For the most part, I think it's going to go uber quick. Now, the popcorn wagon, the small ones also tend to go really quickly. They're obviously at a much more affordable price point. They also suffer from scalping a little bit, but to be fair, this is just a genuinely nice, really well designed little set. I think that is going to sell out as well, and it will do so pretty quickly. As for our other three, the antique shop, I really don't think this is going to sell out. I don't want to sound mean, but I'm not expecting it to sell well at all. I do think that it's going to meet the minimum threshold, so it has to be at least 2,000 sales. I definitely think it will do that. The limit, the top limit on any of these at the moment, if you don't know, is 30,000 copies. So once it reaches that, that's it. You don't get another chance. I mean, I'll caveat that by saying that Lego a week or so ago recently put some sets from Series 1 and Series 2 back up for sale for those in the States and in Canada. I'm assuming for ones that just didn't get paid for and were returned or something like that. Whatever the reason, that was a very small second chance to get hold of some, apart from on the secondary market. But otherwise, once it reaches 30,000 copies, that's it. I don't think this is going to sell out. So if you like it, that's fine. But I certainly wouldn't be worrying about going and getting it the moment that it's released. I think you'll have quite a bit of time to do that. The Mushroom Village, well, the Mushroom House was hugely popular. Yes, this is more expensive. That could put a few people off, but I think the popularity will continue with it. So I also expect this to sell out. I do think that it will be a little bit slower on doing so, but my prediction would still be only a matter of a couple of days at most before it's gone. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's faster than that. As for the Thieves of Tortuga, I love this set. I would definitely want it. And I do think it will sell out. The only thing that's going against it is that there are less pirate fans, or there certainly seem to be, than the likes of Castle and some of the others. So bearing in mind that you've got a really expensive set in there already that most people are going to be wanting to try and get, another one that's expensive too, that could mean that this suffers a little bit in that regard. Also, it tends to be something that scalpers don't go after as much. Therefore, I do think it will sell out because it's such an amazing build, but I don't think that it's going to go instantly. That at least is my prediction. I could be completely and wildly wrong on that. Let me know what you think of that down in the comments below. Ultimately, the safest way is, if there's one of these that you like, or several of them that you like, you need to get them as soon as possible. But there we go. Those are all of the sets that are coming very shortly now, just about a week's time for the start of June. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already and like the video. It really helps. And if you get value out of these, it's what I ask for in return. Hopefully you think that's fair. Get commenting down below. Check out one of these two videos next, and I look forward to seeing you next time round.